Maybe you're getting close to 60 years old. You've saved $1.5 million. We had a good year for investments, and now you're starting to say, I think I'm ready to retire. And you just want to know if the numbers are going to work. What I want to do is take you through a very simple exercise that you can do on your own to start understanding your financial plan as you make this transition into this next phase of life. So if you're ready, let's dive in, and I'll show you how to create a very basic, a very simple retirement plan. And you can test for yourself and see if you're going to be able to retire this year. Okay, so you want to retire. Retirement's all about cash flow. It's all about making sure you've got enough money coming in every month to cover all of your expenses. We got to know how much money you've saved, how long are you going to live, and how much do you spend. And I'm going to show you how you can enter that information into the retirement budget calculator to start building a retirement cash flow plan for yourself. So the first tab here, tab 1, is the time tab, and we put in John and Nancy. This is a make-believe couple. Birthday March 1963, April 1963. And so you can see up here it says John has lived 60 years, and so has Nancy. And their life expectancy is 82 and age 85. Now this is based on the Social Security mortality tables. And you might say, well, everybody in my family lives to age 92. So you can just come in here and make a hereditary adjustment, age 92, and maybe you want to see that everybody in Nancy's family lives to age 95. So you can play around and change life expectancy. But if you don't put anything in, we'll just assume average life expectancy based on Social Security. Tab 2 is where you start to enter in assets and liabilities. So liquid investable assets, these are assets that you can spend to help supplement your income. So they've got a savings account with $600,000, a brokerage account with $200,000, his IRA at $500,000, and then his Roth IRA with $510,000. They also have some real estate, primary residence at $450,000, a rental house at $400,000, and you'll notice they have no liabilities. So when we look up here at assets and liabilities, their net worth is $2,660,000 when you look at all of the assets that they have. Now, if we come over to the net worth tab, we break it down and we say, well, 1.8 million is liquid investable assets and 850,000 is in real estate. Again, this 1.8 million is important because that's the money that we can spend. One of the other things you can do on the assets and liabilities tab is create a custom rate of return for each of these buckets. So you might say the savings account's getting 0%, the brokerage account's getting 2%, and the IRAs are getting 4%. Now hopefully the returns you get are a lot better than that, but when you're doing planning, I always like to say hope for the best, plan for the worst. So assume low rates of return and modest inflation, and then see how the plan works with those really conservative assumptions. And hopefully the reality would be that every year as you make a transition through retirement, the numbers look better and better and better. And then the tab 3, this is where you have to enter your income and your expenses. So you can see in this case, he has $10,000 a month in wages that will end when he retires. And then they're going to have Social Security that will start in April of 2025 and May of 2025. And then down here under expenses, we kept things really simple in this model. We said that they're going to have $7,000 a month of expenses, and they're also going to have a one-time expense of $40,000 that's going to occur in 2026. So you notice that's just a one-time expense of $40,000. The other thing I'll draw your attention to here is we're assuming that there's a 3% inflation on the $7,000 that they need every month. So every year they're going to need more and more income to keep up the rising cost of goods and services. Down here, we've really tried to be as detailed as possible and give you a lot of template data on your spending so you don't miss things. I found that the people that really have the most confidence heading into retirement are people that really take the time to understand their spending, where's their money going. And I know that this is something a lot of people don't do. A lot of people don't budget once they get to 60 years old because they're used to spending less than they make and they're good savers. But if you're going to make this transition into retirement where you don't have a paycheck coming in anymore, you really want to understand your expenses to the highest degree possible to really, if you really want a high degree of confidence to know that you've saved enough to cover all of your expenses. So we really give you a lot of data here, but feel free to enter as much or as little as you want. I would encourage you to consider being as detailed as possible. Once we enter your birth date and we have some idea for life expectancy and we enter your assets and liabilities and then we put your budget data in, then we can come over to the future view. And the purpose of the future view is really to simply help us understand how the numbers work. So in this case, we'll say, what if you get 4% per year on your money? And then we look, here you are in 2023, you're both age 60. Next year, the green line here represents the year of retirement. And you'll notice in 2024, he only has 2 months worth of wages. So he'll have $20,000 of income. But his budget's going to require $86,520. Whenever there's a shortfall, they have $20,000 of income and expenses of $86,000. That means there's a shortfall of $66,520, and this money has to come from somewhere. So if we click here, you'll notice initially we have the withdrawal order set to come out of the savings account first, and of course we have the savings account growing at 4% per year. And then 2025, they're taking money out. 2026, they take that extra $40,000 to do the kitchen remodel. So that year they have to take $110,000 out. And then it drops back down to $73,000. Of course, the withdrawals are going up all the time because they're needing to take portfolio withdrawals, and their expenses are always increasing with inflation. And then down here, you can also see we have their Social Security income coming in. Now, one of the neat things that we do is we have the taxes tab to help you estimate your federal income taxes each year. So you can see in 2023, they have $120,000 of income. They have a standard deduction of $27,700, taxable income of $92,000, with a tax of $10,921. But if we get out to, say, 2026, now you can see they have $31,000 of Social Security, none of which is taxable because of the provisional income rules in this particular situation. Now, if their Social Security was partially taxable, we would do that calculation. But based on the fact that we're saying they have no other income other than Social Security, none of their Social Security is taxable. So you can see they drop into this really low tax bracket that year of 2026. Part of the reason for that is we're assuming that they're taking all those initial withdrawals out of the savings account. We're saying the savings account is earning interest, but we didn't enter any interest income here on the budget tab. So if we wanted to account for the interest, we could, and that would change our estimates for taxes. But ultimately, this Future View tab is really what's going to help you to look out into the future. So you can see in their case, they make it to age 81 before they deplete their portfolio down to zero. This yellow line represents the portfolio going to zero. Now you can play around with things like growth rates. So if you want to assume a higher growth rate, you can. If you want to say, well, what would have happened if I had a 60% stock, 40% bond portfolio with a historical sequence of returns using the S&P 500 and treasuries to create that model? What would that have looked like? You can see you end up with a lot more money at the end of your life if history repeats itself. You could say what would happen with a bad timing sequence of returns. So this is starting out in the year 2000, where you experienced the dot-com bubble, and then you experienced the financial crisis in 2008, and you can just see how the portfolio would have returned under a bad timing sequence of returns. But ultimately, what most people are trying to understand is, have we saved enough? Are we going to be okay? The Buckets tab allows you to visualize how to diversify your money across time segments. The idea is that money you need in the near term, in the short term, that you want that money to be relatively low risk because that's what you're going to be spending the first 3 years of retirement. This money is money that we're not going to touch till year 4, so we can take a little bit of risk with that money to have it grow a little bit more for you. This is money that you need years 7 through 9, and then this is money that you don't need to touch for 10 years. So the idea is time is the cure to the volatility of the stock market. The more time you have, the more risk you can afford to take. And so we found that when people think of their money in terms of when they're going to actually spend it, and then they diversify the money and take the appropriate amount of risk based on some of this data, that it just gives people a lot more confidence. Again, the last thing you want to do is find yourself in a situation where you just retire, the market crashes, and you're taking money out at the same time. It's like the worst case possible scenario if that were to happen. And a bucket strategy just helps you diversify your money across time segments based on when you're going to need it. One of the things you're going to find in retirement is you're going to have a lot more time to do the things you really want to do. And we want you to have lifetime goals. These are the big things, the bucket list things that you've always wanted to do. But we also want you to have little daily routines that you get into. So make sure you're drinking water, eating a banana for breakfast. You can add goals, whatever's important to you, especially important as you're thinking about the new year. I know I've met with a lot of people that once they retire, they just get a lot healthier. They lose a lot of weight. They find that they exercise more. They start having more time to play pickleball and go golfing and just do things that are fun. And by putting these things in, you can start tracking these daily habits and weekly habits, monthly, yearly, just to make sure that you're living your best life, that you're living intentionally. So this is the retirement budget calculator. Again, once you get all this information in here, it's going to paint a picture for you, and it's going to help you understand whether or not you've saved enough and whether or not you can afford to retire. If you're looking for help and you want an advisor to go through this with you, just click on Talk to an Advisor, and one of our advisors will meet with you and see if we can add any significant, meaningful value to your financial life. If maybe you need some help with investment management to make sure that the investments match up with the plan, that's an area that we can add a lot of value to people's lives. Okay, I hope you found this helpful, and I hope 2024 is your best year yet, and I hope that you can retire if that's your plan for 2024. You only get, my friend and my mentor, Dean, used to tell me, he said, Jason, this is the real deal. You only get one shot. Go give it everything you've got with everything you got. There are no do-overs. Make it happen. Okay, thanks so much.